I had an interesting conversation today, and this half hour is going to be all about the new superintendent of Rochester Public Schools, who went in depth with me this afternoon, getting into the handling of in-person learning post-pandemic, concerns for students, teachers, and staff as the fall school year gets set to kick off in a little more than a month. And then we're learning a little bit more about his own personal, multicultural background and his family dynamics, something that most people probably aren't aware of. And his own personal dynamic gives him a great perspective on race, diversity, and of course, education, which we are getting into after last night's public comment session got heated at the school board meeting because of critical race theory. All right, so first and foremost, critical race theory, and what is it? In the simplest terms, it's defined as the practice of questioning the role of race and racism in society. Up until recently, it's been taught on the collegiate level, but some school districts across the country are implementing it in their K-12 curriculum. It has morphed, though, into a liberal versus conservative issue politically. And opponents of critical race theory worry that kids are being taught that to be white is to be racist, while being black is about being oppressed. There's a lot when it comes to taking over a school district the size of Rochester, and then talking about this issue of critical race theory, which has seeped into communities nationwide. So a lot of people showed up at last night's school board meeting in Rochester, opposed to any such teachings on critical race theory in our public schools.
Teach that America is bad, and they want to indoctrinate our kids, and I do not want that. We will be back, and we'll be back with more numbers.
So local education leaders say critical race theory is not being taught in our K-12 public schools, but skeptics say it is. It's not just being called that per se. It's the first school board meeting that the new superintendent sat in on, and he is addressing this, as well as the political climate in academia and a lot more. Well, I'm thrilled to be able to bring into this conversation Dr. Pekel, the interim superintendent for Rochester Public Schools. You just started this position and boom, here's your first school board meeting and you got thrown for a loop. I know that the issue of critical race theory has not, it wasn't on the agenda for last night. A lot of parents showed up. They are very, very concerned about this. Your reaction to that and for people who are concerned about this being taught in our schools is what?
One thing I'd say is it's not entirely clear. First of all, they were citizens of Rochester. They have every right to be there. It was unclear how many are parents, in fact, and we don't ask. Critical race theory is an academic framework that began in the world of the legal profession and has since been applied to analyze other environments, including schools. It's not a curriculum. It's not a practice. We don't teach it in Rochester Public Schools. Yes. We are deeply committed to equity, but that's not synonymous with critical race theory. And so the people who were there last night who had really big concerns about critical race theory were expressing them in the wrong school district. I'm not sure where it would be relevant, but it definitely was not in Rochester. But we don't respond in those public comment settings, and so it's always good to listen.
And a lot of the fears from people who I have heard from who said that they were going to go was that, so it's not being called critical race theory, Betsy. There's some issues with the principles of that to what then is going to be taught in the schools, and like it's some big secret that they're not going to know if their parents, that their students are being taught this in school, and it's some kind of secret. Mm-hmm. How do you ease those concerns?
We teach, I'm 2 weeks into the job, and so I'm learning every second, but we teach to Minnesota state standards. And the commitment to do that is very deep, and that's what we're required to do. Critical race theory is not in Minnesota state standards, and so we are not freelancing with different content. Being committed to equity and to all kids succeeding in school and in life is definitely our mission. It's our deep commitment. I don't know how you can argue with that. And so that's what we're going to stay focused on.
There's so much that politics has seeped into these days. Politics has played a big part in our lives for decades, right? You have some political background, but these days, the politics being so polarizing is so hard. That's got to make things even more challenging for you. How do you keep politics out of policy, out of a job like this? You're dealing with relationships.
Yeah, you know, there used to be a saying that politics stops at the water's edge. When the president or somebody is overseas, we're all Americans. I would hope we could take that approach to education in Rochester. This is about our kids. And I mean, even people last night who were quite angry about things, I deeply appreciated their commitment to kids, their focus on kids. And if we can keep that first, and keep the fact that these are emerging human beings who are facing a lot of challenges that many of us didn't face when we were younger.
But you know, so many times that those who are right-leaning say that it's become so left-leaning and that our kids are being indoctrinated. Therefore, the concerns go from one level to a heightened awareness. I feel it in the media because if I report on just this one said this and this one said that, I get in trouble for not saying it harsh enough. It's hard.
Yeah. My early impressions of Rochester are that what the really great teachers and other educators in this district are doing are teaching kids to think critically. That doesn't mean indoctrination. And we want these kids to be able to think critically about their world, themselves, their values. And that's the overarching message of my first 2 weeks of looking at where we are educationally in the district. I don't think that indoctrination is the right phrase for the kinds of things that our teachers are doing with our kids.
Give me 2 minutes, let me take a break and come back and talk about more of your background and what qualifies you to run the public schools here, okay?
All right.
All right, we'll be right back. Continuing my conversation now with Dr. Pekel, who is the interim superintendent for Rochester Public Schools. He just started on the job a couple weeks ago, and a lot to take on coming out of a pandemic and dealing with the at-home learning, the in-school learning, to mask, to not mask, the vaccinations, all of that. How are you handling the post-pandemic part of education in our schools?
We are deeply in the midst of planning for the return to school in the fall and are looking certainly at what the guidance is going to be from health authorities, and we'll be making some recommendations to the school board in the very near future about what that should look like. We are also thinking really hard about kids' social emotional well-being.
Isn't that something that we have learned so much about in
Absolutely.
a year?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen, you know, just one measure of the distress. Kids' mental health visits to emergency rooms have skyrocketed, and that's just one measure of it. We can't now just forget that and say, well, yeah, they went through this big pandemic, and now let's get right back to reading and math. I mean, there are these proposals around the country to address what's being called learning loss. And academic achievement is critical. It's what I've spent my whole career thinking about in different ways. But if we try and deal with that with kind of drill and kill boot camps, you know, extended day, extended school year, which is
get
definitely
them caught
being proposed.
up and make
Right.
it done or get it done at any cost.
Right.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. We need to lean into those relationships with these kids, and we need to also make space for them to get reacculturated to being in school. Because they've been experiencing it through screens or through a hybrid, you know, experience. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about how we're going to do that starting in the fall.
And then you have to worry about the teachers. Teachers have their own concerns.
Absolutely.
They don't want to be in a school if people aren't masked and they're not vaccinated. And I can understand that. And then there's people screaming, saying, just get back to school, teach my kid, and let's be done with it already. It just isn't that simple. So you have to worry about teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. The teachers and other staff.
Yeah.
And the staff that I've encountered in Rochester is extraordinary, incredibly committed. The stuff they accomplished during the pandemic, I mean, they basically completely flipped the switch on what they do and did it with a lot of care and integrity. And you're absolutely right that their well-being also needs to be part of my concern. And we know
don't
from
want to lose any of them.
We don't want to lose them.
We've got a shortage.
We know from a lot of research that the well-being of the teachers has a powerful influence on the performance of the students.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
So we're thinking about the whole village as we're looking at the start of school.
Okay, one more break. And then I promise we're going to come back because, you know, you kind of work by the CIA or you worked with the CIA director. I always find that fascinating.
All right.
We'll be back in 2. All right, so earlier in the program, we've addressed some educational issues coming out of the pandemic, the critical race theory that was brought up at the school board last night. But Dr. Pekel, who is the interim superintendent of Rochester Public Schools, now just started on the job a couple of weeks ago, and we want to know about you, because what we have said about you in the past when you were chosen and offered the contract is one thing. We can only say so much, but you have a really diverse background. Start with, you were a teacher, and then we'll get to the CIA.
Yeah, I started my career, I was a teacher in Bloomington up in the Twin Cities. I thought I would be doing that for a very long time. I wanted to be in an urban school district in Bloomington. Actually, it's changed a lot in the 20 years since then, but it was a suburban district, and so I couldn't get a job in either Minneapolis or St. Paul at the time. They were very full. So I applied for this fellowship called the White House Fellows Program, which was started under Lyndon Johnson, and about 12 people from across the country go and you work for a member of the president's cabinet for a year. And so I went out there. I was a high school teacher from Minnesota, and I had studied Chinese in college. I'd studied it in high school. I'd lived there for 3 years teaching, so my Chinese was pretty good. And there was a new director of the CIA who was going from the Department of Defense, but he was an academic. He'd been a professor at MIT. And he said, hey, maybe I'll have this young guy be kind of my eyes and ears on a series of really important projects. And so that was a one-year fellowship, and that led to some other work after the fact. Then I fell in love and got married and realized that doing that work around the world wasn't going to be a fit with that. Yeah. And so made a transition and eventually came back here to Minnesota and worked in St. Paul Public Schools, which is the school district that I graduated from.
Okay, so nobody's really talked about the personal side of things for you. Your wife was good with this kind of move, and then are you a dad?
I am. So the backstory was my first wife, Tanya, who's the woman I mentioned, she passed away, died of breast cancer when our kids were 3, 5, and 10. So as happens, I know for lots of us and lots of our families in Rochester Public Schools, life threw me a big curveball. I was a single dad and did that for 6 years. I got remarried to my wife, Katie, in 2012. But the thing that got, I think, my 3 kids through, Lauren, Adam, and Victoria, was relationships. It really was, and in fact, there was an early childhood teacher who worked with all 3 of my kids, and right after Tanya died, she actually closed the preschool so all the teachers could come to her funeral, and then she just said to me, and I've talked about it before, I never forget it, she just said, Kent, from this point on, everything depends on the relationships, and treat the relationship like a thing. Don't just expect it to happen. And she was talking to me about my relationship with my own children, but that's shaped the whole direction of my career. Very often we expect, if we get the curriculum right, or if we get the program right, the relationship with kids will just happen. And in fact, when we're intentional about the relationship, that's really where the magic happens. And so that's been kind of a guiding theme of my work during this somewhat unusual career that I'm really excited to bring together here in Rochester.
Do you hope that this becomes more than a year? I know you have to be looking in the future and think, you know what, I'll let you test me out for a year and then you want to stay?
Yeah, I think it's a mutual testing in a good way, in the sense that I want to be
somewhere... We've been through some issues with superintendency in this district.
I understand that the school board has to think both about the past and then be looking at the future, so I think it makes great sense to do the interim strategy as they decided to do. I want to be somewhere where we can do the serious work in a sustained way, because nothing in education, if it's meaningful, is quick and fast. But we got to move. We got to prepare these kids for the extraordinary opportunities and challenges that they're going to have in their lives. And I want to be in a place where we can really roll up our sleeves, and frankly, we can bridge some of these divides that keep tripping us up between like school and community, or between social emotional skills and academic skills, or in some ways between one culture and another culture, and that we can actually find a way to bring those things together in the interest of kids.
Hate to point out the obvious, but you're a white guy.
I am.
And so when we have people talking about diversity, what we've heard so often within the school district is that we need teachers who resemble the student population. And here's, for those who think differently and racially and the differences that we have right now in this country, having another white man come in and do something may be discouraging for them.
Well, I can't speak to what they're saying. I think to Rochester's credit, Rochester has had leaders
I
of
should
color.
say that they're not saying it,
yeah,
but that people are looking for more diversity.
They absolutely are, and they should be. And I have, at multiple points in my career, been proud to work for people of color. And they were dynamic, fantastic leaders that I think did a great job. I think that my experience as a white man who is very committed to equity and diversity also opens some possibilities. It also happens on the personal side. My wife, Tanya, who I mentioned, who passed away, was African American, and our kids are biracial who identify as black. And so that's been part of my life journey, to see the extraordinary richness of that culture that I've been privileged to be a part of, and we're still very connected to their extended family, and the incredible challenges that people of color face in our society today as well.
I think that's an overlooked piece of who you are that is important. Having lived through, I'm sure, some racial issues that may have affected your kids, or like even when I talk to my own boys who are just in the driving age right now about what happens when we get pulled over because of the world we're living in, because of the changes that there are, you having children who are of mixed race brings a different dynamic to who you are.
Oh, absolutely. My son looks strikingly like Dante Wright, who now doesn't look at all like him in terms of like his facial features, but he does in terms of complexion and things like that, and who was just killed in the Twin Cities. And so that, as a dad, because he was biracial as well, that as a dad definitely immediately came to my mind. The thing, though, I would just say in terms of these issues of race and culture that are very difficult and that are very much on everyone's minds today, I think we need to face them with honesty, but we also need to face them with optimism. We need to face them with the fact that we can lean into these challenges in the interest of kids and find ways to connect.
Stop fighting each other.
We can do that.
And work for the betterment.
Yeah, and it's not simple, and I don't mean to say that's flippant, but I think we need to bring a sense of resolve and honesty, but optimism to this work. And that's what I would hope I could be doing here in Rochester.
You are very charismatic, and I can feel your passion, so I really appreciate you giving me this much time and getting to know you. And I look forward to the year with you to see kind of what develops.
Yeah, I'm not just saying this because we're doing this interview, but I really appreciate the opportunity, because one of the biggest things I think we want to do over the year I'm here as interim is we really want to open the doors of Rochester Public Schools to our community. We want to let them know the great work that's going on in this system. We want to hear their ideas for the future of this system, and there's no better way to do it than through a medium like you and your viewers, so thank you.
Let's hope that they take you up on it, because it helps a lot with the collaboration to be able to come in and say, you know what, he meant what he said, and he stands behind it.
I invite people, and I know they would do it anyway, I invite people to hold me accountable, because I actually get energized by that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back.